Expeditions podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Of course, the Inner Expeditions podcast. My name is Aaron Harvey. Welcome back. If you're joining us for the first time, great to have you along. This is season 2, episode 10. Really stoked to have a good friend, Leon Evangelistis, join me today on the episode. Talk a lot about some amazing things, owning yourself, getting to know yourself, and happiness via your own happiness, not the happiness that might be being suggested to you from outside influences. So super excited about this one. Really not going to waste around on the intro. I want to get you into this one to meet Leon. It's a ripper. Please hang on and enjoy. That's record now. We're on.
Goodness.
We're live.
I don't know how I feel about this.
Really? Well, you're
I'll be
here.
okay.
I think you're okay.
I got to mention, as a disclaimer, nobody likes their recorded voice.
Correct.
And I put my hand up for that. But
Yeah.
I will get used to it, only because I like these headphones you gave me, because I just recently acquired some.
I'm glad. You look like you're at home. You're looking you're looking more comfortable and relaxed, which is good. So I'm glad I provided that.
I think I look slouchy, but that's okay. Thank you, Az.
You're comfortable. I think you're ready to have a good conversation.
Am I coming through okay?
Yes. Looks good. Screen looks good. Your voice is showing up. It's good.
My voice does show up in a lot of places, I've been told.
It does. But it's here today, which is, I'm really stoked about it. Glad to have you on, giving me your time to sit down and talk about some pretty cool stuff, I think.
Thank you. I got to say, I never thought I would. I've been often asked previously, and I still think it's a intimidating experience, but we'll get through that.
Yeah, it can be when everyone's happy, sharing opinions and talking and stuff, and we always sit down and catch up, and when we do, the conversation's pretty epic. However, sometimes I can see you put a microphone in front of someone, they almost freeze up instantly. So
Very true.
Not the case here, but I think, I have seen it happen. But I don't think that's going to be...
Yeah, I think everyone, I don't know if you want to be in charge of your environment, but you feel more comfortable when things come not rehearsed. Not that this is going to be rehearsed, because it's not. As a disclaimer, I have nothing written down, just a few things on my right hand, just to remind me of some long-winded, erudite words that I might forget and freeze up later. Let's see.
Well, I guess to kick things off, I always like to sort of see where you guys are at. You've been pretty busy lately helping Kyra out with her work. Kyra was obviously our first guest on the show with breathwork and with her freediving stuff. You've been helping out with that, but how's that been, and what else have you been up to?
Talking about Kyra.
Oh, just briefly
My
about your
fiancée,
involvement.
my
Yeah, your
partner.
fiancée. That's
Yes.
right now. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. In terms of, in reference to our environment and socioeconomic environment and changing through what the world's going through, it has worked in our favour. And in terms of that, we're busy.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. I think what Kyra and I assist with is a good product. But if I just do state from, we've had an advantage geographically at the moment.
Yeah.
So the message we get out is good anywhere in the world, but we've been assisted greatly because of lockdown laws in this country.
Yeah, totally. Which seems to be happening a fair bit at the moment, I think.
Australia-wide, you mean?
Yeah, Australia-wide. But the thing, what I like with what you guys are doing is it's a positive thing. It's outside. It's learning. I think it's enriching people's lives, doing the activities, freediving, breath work, yoga.
It's funny in this thing, like I got not in agreement, but I actually got to go, yes.
You don't have to.
Because I'm not even going, yes. So for you viewers, or no viewers, listeners at home, I'm nodding in agreement. It is that. It's all that, as.
Yeah, which it's hard to, and I've got absolutely no doubt there's a lot of people that are probably struggling to find positives with the situation at the moment. I don't think, can really comprehend how bad it is elsewhere with the virus still, affecting countries in major ways with new infections and new strains, really keeping people at home, making people sick. And we're incredibly lucky to be not in that grasp, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it is still affecting us in other ways.
This is very true.
Psychologically, mentally, health-wise, it's still affecting us in regards to lockdowns, job security, and all of those sorts of things. So for
I think what you mentioned in the end is a little bit more important to talk about in the narrative too, aside from this thing, the virus. And I need to introduce, there's a couple of different narratives in how you receive in terms of your personal belief systems. If we focus just solely on that, yeah, it could be the boogeyman, the thing under your bed. It inspires and invokes these kind of fight or flight responses. Especially when people, I really feel what I figured out, civilization, humanity, whatever we call ourselves now, collection of people, souls, we like comfort. So it's really upending the idea of that. So if it's 10,000 BC and it's a saber-toothed tiger and it's attacking the village, it'll make us uncomfortable. We'll put processes in place to shield us from that fear or flight, walls around the village, or distractions. So I can see it going very both ways. Again, we won't focus completely on your belief systems with what is going on with the actual virus. But what you mentioned, I think, is really important. The job instability, economic instability, the shifting of that safe narrative that we think we got as the sharpened end of a Western civilized world. And it just shows us how quickly that can be shook to the foundation. And if that ties into what we're doing up here, how we're shepherded, but we're still affected. And I think that's important to talk about, and I think a lot of people, whether you call it the news media you watch or Trump's fake news or what have you, we're really understanding more so. Oh, I lost my train of thought. It's interesting.
It's okay.
You help me out here and I'll get back there.
What I think is where you're kind of getting is what I feel with that side of it is that there's the wolf at the door on a few fronts, because you've got the threat of the pandemic, obviously health-wise, but then it's creating a knock-on effect with all other sorts of negatives as far as, job insecurity, social and economic insecurity, and it kind of exposes ourselves a little bit on the inside because we're left to deal with it in our own way, like how we interpret that, I guess, that insecurity and fear. How are we going to process that internally and then move forward with our lives, I guess, with that as a constant. And I feel that maintaining good health and getting out when you can, a lot of people probably can't really do that at the moment, but I kind of feel like you're almost left with yourself a little bit. Even if you're locked indoors, you've got a lot of time to sit inside and think about things.
How terrifying as well.
Yeah. And that's, like you say, that's where you can get the saviour. We have these things in place. We're going to put policies and things in place to that physical saviour, like the barriers of the saber-toothed tiger, but then we've also got the distractions. How can we distract people from this? And for good or bad, capitalise
also,
on
we can
that.
talk about like living in the Western model. We can say there's a sense of entitlement being in the first world, whatever nationality now, we're all, it's, choosing our own adventure too. So you really got to think about the narrative you choose to introduce to yourself in terms of, are your distractions positive? Are they yours? Or are they written for you? And that's a really big thing to think about. I think in terms of that question, where do they come from? Are they seeded internally? Do they come from a good source? Or are you just accepting what they might call the party line? So I think these are highlighted in these days as well. And I know we want to return back to the narrative of, I know you're really involved in trail running and, the physicality. and also from what I do, what I assist my partner, what I really enjoy doing as well with that contact with nature, bringing us back to that sort of environment to see that we want to talk more about being positively distracted and being more so truthful to ourselves, even if it's uncomfortable. And I think that's where people are finding a little bit more hiccups. And this is all myself, I'm always included in this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak from some point of, on the soapbox or some sort of elevation, because we're all human. That's that connecting point, and we live on a fulcrum point of balance, a balancing point. Darkness, light, positive, negative. We need to accept that more.
It's almost like, if you would describe it as, I guess, your life, it's like a lake. And if you're on a lake where there's, the constant bit of breeze and noise and life going on, there's going to be ripples on the lake, I guess. And once this COVID has hit, those kind of distractions are gone. So the ripples go away and you're on a still lake because there's not a lot going on. You're at home, you're on your own, you might be less engaged with less things going on.
There's a lot of particular spiritual sciences that you can engage in for a long term where you want that.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where I think you're bringing up, and what I see, maybe something you understand and where people suffer, is because they're so into having input all the time.
Yeah.
When they have to sit with that silence, they suffer more. Whereas through other processes we might talk about as well.
Yeah.
Freediving you mentioned. I think you get that feeling, trail running, that disconnection, that repetition. Formula One drivers call it being right on that line where you're surrendered to the present moment. We've used that word so many times more recently.
Yeah.
But to really understand, can you be comfortable by being bored, present, and still?
Yeah.
Because we are a very input resource society, and it's so dramatically connected to the economy. We're sold distractions. As you might even say, we might have to put our fall hat on or off. We're sold this pandemic. We're sold everything. We're sold an economic process, a political process. But when do we ever get a chance to sit, aside from all those heavy external influences, and be? And this is where I hear, like you choose running. A lot of people choose endurance,
whatever
extreme
that is.
sports.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that, and I have to say that as a disclaimer that freediving isn't anything like that. It has been associated to an extreme sport a long time ago, but we do know that the sciences and the safety messages that we teach has made it more of a meditation.
Yeah.
So, I'm interested in this too because, a lot of people seek comfort in chaos, but then when they're silent, that's when their real chaos hits.
Well, I think that's
what
where
people are being more challenged these days.
And that's where the lake sort of comes in, is that once the water's still, because those distractions have been ironed out, I guess, is that you can see into the depths and you can see clearly through what's underneath and what's underlying and what's now coming up.
I like your metaphor. Anekdoto. Anekdoto is an anecdote in Greek. That's what I like. I like when you use descriptions like that, because I've used the lake to tell people and myself through, you might say darker periods or challenging times, is that regardless as water, its homeostasis is still. So if you offer wind and tide, it's going to be like this. Yeah, you don't like it when you go to the back of the reef, but then there'll be a day where it's going to be glass off, and everyone celebrates that as well.
Yeah.
And I've used that metaphor or that anecdote all the time. I really like that too. But the depth thing, yes, because we've never nurtured those moments of not being distracted, especially, I would dare say, I don't want to speak completely for this newer generation, but I don't think they've ever been born or raised without being distracted. Yeah. Whereas you had more opportunity hundreds of years ago, or putting your attention into a craft and losing yourself. I don't know, woodsmithing, blacksmithing. Is it woodsmithing? Woodworking?
Timberwork, stuff like that, I guess.
JC, he was a carpenter. So we used to choose that as our distractions and repetition, but now we don't really put our mind into something completely for a long duration.
And like you say, with the boredom side of it, when when my kids are bored and they might want to watch telly or do something like that, and you say, well, you're not having telly, go outside and play, and they might complain, but as soon as they sort of get over that, the creativity that's born from the boredom, I mean, it's okay for kids and for people to be bored, because that then forces you, it forces you to teach that somewhere else that you wouldn't have got to without that. I guess.
We go back to the abyss you said.
Yeah.
So it could be a crystal, 30-meter day, perfect viz, everyone froths over up here, or it could be like a quarry and dark, your mind.
And these things.
And this is where I go another.
I
always say sorry to
You're right. No,
interrupt, but you see the classic image of we think orange robed Tibetan monk, Theraputa monk, Burmese monk, cross-legged, But realistically, what I know and what I've heard from the scripture is that they're sitting with the abyss in front of them, and they're terrified, but they've trained themselves to be still with that terror. So if you can sort of transform that into everyday life, then not that again, I want to disclaimer, you shouldn't put pressure on yourself either. That's a very modern affliction, where I think if we do talk about more Eastern philosophy, they're a little bit more gentler of mind in terms of, when to progress. They can spend lifetimes they talk about, because they talk about rebirth. We don't in a monotheistic Christian faith, and we think that's the end for us. So we want to get it all done now.
Yeah.
So that puts pressure on us as well, But it is something to sit with that abyss in silence. And I don't think people lend, enough time to be able to train themselves, because they add so many different things at so many different rates, and they don't really concentrate on one for a duration.
Well, I feel like some things have to be dealt with, whether you're terrified or not. And when you say you have that time with yourself, things come up that you're probably being distracted with everyday life. Things go on the go. When things stop and you're still and you're just left with your own thoughts, you definitely, I think, things can come up that you've pushed down and you don't want to deal with. But then when they do come up,
didn't we, Yaz?
You can.
We got right into the depths of it right now. But also, I think
some things are meant to be. You have to step up and overcome certain things to move forward. And it's a healthy thing to do, whether it scares you. You have to deal with certain issues, otherwise you just get stuck, I think.
We will talk about trail running and a little bit of freediving later, but this is actually quite good. And from what you're saying is raising this, and I've known you for quite a while. I respect you as a human.
Thanks.
Compadre, fellow male in this world, adjusting to it. But you offer this other side, because I'm not a family man classically. I've got a couple of ducks and cats, and another one called, by default, another cat we call Tim, who I still feed the shitty biscuits, not the expensive ones that my cats eat. So I have a menagerie, but you understand, like, as a father in this, and with what's happening now, the challenges with that, and also providing for them, and the model of what that looks like. Maybe I've had a little more time to study other things esoteric in my life. But I get a little bit, just a disclaimer, I go on sidebars and I get a little bit distracted and I forget where I was. But I was getting somewhere, and we can certainly get back there, don't worry.
Yeah.
We will. But I just pick up something from what you say, that it's not sort of a little bit divergent to how I feel, but critically what I feel now, because not that I'm saying I got to some place, whatever, because life is always a project of evolution. You can't really say you've mastered anything. But I question and challenge the idea of what is mastery in our age now, 2021, 22. Do people lend enough time to do that? With that, I want to add, we've got every resource, more than we ever fucking have. And I will swear sometimes, because as says I can. And he won't even bleep me out, which is great.
Absolutely.
Because I'm crude sometimes. That's okay. But we have every resource here. With all those resources as well, and distractions, do we ever lend enough time to master what we think will get us to that place of real esoteric surrender, or just, I think it's even very basic. You're not going to go on this project now with whether it's diet-based, whether it's spiritual sciences, whether it's a physical pursuit, freediving, trail running, a lot of different things to get yourself out of that zone. I think really the issue is people just basically want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Not liberated. I don't want to levitate. What I found, and I've had challenges in my life like everyone has, but I think they steal you and you get more happier to be able to have that banality. And we got to sell that more to this generation, that banality is okay, that you don't always have to have the best day ever.
That's right.
Because that's so pressured for people. And then we can sort of segue that into social media and all the applications with that. I don't think people are really finding their gravity. They're not going to get a chance to. And you got to live lives, with what we're being assaulted with to be able to get to, I don't know, somewhere where without, and I'm rambling a lot, I know, and I'll let you.
It's okay, no, it's good.
But I will go like, I have an anecdote. If you are a young Myanmar, which was Burmese son, and you got dumped into a temple at the age of 11, you didn't really have a choice. But then someone chose that path for you, put the robes on, you did the work without knowing that all these other distractions, you're exactly where, people in the West want to be without all the resources, the money spent and the craziness.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of shortcuts that people want. I mean, you talk about monks, they might sit in a cave or somewhere completely unplugged from everywhere, and a part of that is the test, or they're coming up through ascension or whatever to get this way of thinking. It's just time spent with yourself, learning your own thoughts, learning yourself. And people are like, oh, I would love to have that. But you can't have that without doing the time. There's no
Great
shortcut
point.
to that. There's no shortcut. Everyone wants the shortcut.
Everyone wants to download
They
the
want
app.
the life hack.
Everyone wants the life hack. Everyone wants the app, and everyone wants it to do them. They're not actually going to code the app.
Yeah.
They think they know. They don't even spend the time doing the coding.
Yeah.
They just, whether they bought it or usually go for the free app, and they think that download will get them that liberation.
That's right.
But it takes work. It takes you to learn to be, a computer programmer, learn the modern code, do the coding, impregnate that code, doing it over duration of time.
That's right.
And also giving that time up, without being unsure. These people, like we just mentioned, they're not sure what they're doing, but they will be consistent with repetition, hoping for a result.
Yeah.
Where everyone is result orientated now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that goes into what I know you want to speak about, things that are so like it's more in our vocabulary than ever, anxiety, depression, mental health. Everything is so attributed to mental health. This is a real issue, but are we really tackling it the right way, or are we just throwing money during an event but not really thinking about it and talking about it long term?
I mean, you can't... there's some things you just can't sugarcoat, and sometimes to get to where you want to be, you've got to go through a bit of a squeeze. You've got to be prepared to be uncomfortable and go through discomfort to come out the other side
100%.
Getting the results. And it might not go the way that you thought it would go, but that's where the learning is, and maybe in the improvement.
I'm going to say it is not just something you might need. I'm going to be astute about it and say it is something you definitely need.
Yeah.
And if there's a program or there's someone like the Wizard of Oz, is it? The generation, it's hard to play Trivial Pursuit with young kids these days. They don't.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz was, there's a guy behind a screen controlling things, or for today, gender neutrality, a person behind a screen, But there is a program, I think, that has been written. If you go deeper into the spiritual sciences to say that you chose to live this life right now, whether you rebirth yourself, you got to accept the darkness with the light. I think that is the critical programming, that if you don't go through, there isn't lessons learnt or that shift that needs to be made in this physical. A lot of other people talk about it as 3 dimensions, 3D. We work with X, Y, Z axes. Everyone's, it's a new trending thing to talk about. 4th, 5th going on. Look where we're going with this.
Yeah.
However, you need to, as they say, walk before you run. So you need to walk this walk here in 3D, and sometimes it sucks.
You have to walk the steps to get
You
there.
got to walk the steps.
Yeah, you can't take the sidetrack. I mean, I don't know. I may have mentioned it on the show before, and I've definitely mentioned it to friends. Is that, I couldn't go back 5-6 years in the past and have this conversation with myself and say, look, this is what you need to do, because I wouldn't have listened.
Yeah, there's definitely
I had
points in my life that I was completely blind to this.
Things had to happen to me.
Yeah.
To gain that attention and for me to stand up and to start listening.
100. Yeah.
And then, you don't tackle it as you don't see it as a wall, and you don't tackle it as a wall. You take a small step in the right direction, and then they eventually lead to you learning more. And it's not a destination; it's a journey the whole time.
I'm sure you figured out that surrender and acceptance is a key part of the process.
Absolutely.
If you create resistance and all this, and still are aligned to what society or the universe dictates to you, what you think you should be or how you should be, then it's only going to be more painful. I'm sure you've come to that sort of conclusion. But if this podcast is about me, I don't even know. We're just talking. But I do agree wholeheartedly, it seems like I could have been speaking this way or had this mindset for forever and quite a while. But I know if I reflect back, I've often said to people, if I, and I'm sure some people think about my 45-year-old self, but if I had my 19-year-old self in front of me, there'll be a jab, there'll be a sharp elbow to his head, because my God, the precociousness and what he thought he completely understood and knew.
Yeah.
Maybe just reading the Celestine Prophecy in 1996. But the journey I've relearnt so many times, and I've been put on my knees and flat on my face, with hubris. The word is humility as well. In that, so I can even see that, even though it was a strong narrative for me to explore a little bit more, let's say internal was way more my direction in life than material wealth, and, I was more experiential. But there was times where, I was very materialistic. There was times where I thought I was heading off to New York to be a fashion photographer, and that's all I really cared about. And I can see that character there, and like I might mention that as some fantasy, but it was actually really true. And the opportunities, another thing that people talk about is the secret and manifestation. But if I reflect back in my life, anything I put my mental energy to, it always came to me. And everyone sort of said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky, Leon. You always think you look so fortunate." But there's times in my life where, mate, I didn't feel that fortunate as well. But in reflection, it took that for growth to reflect back and trust to say that, where I've ended up where I am now is exactly where I'm meant to be. But who knows further on? It's a mystery still. And that's the present. And again, the present that people say that it is. But I can look back and really see that there's been certain times where I thought I was where I was meant to be, and present. And and universally, or the wizard behind that screen, or who runs the programming, will give you another lesson until you learn it, I think that's part of the precept, that you can't have that ego that you got somewhere on the pinnacle and you're beyond learning.
Yeah, I think the day you stop learning, or the day you think that you have it all covered, is...
And that's even in sport,
kind
like
of
let's say...
It's for anything. It's relative to anything.
Running or whatever, you get to a point and people do, First thing they ask with freediving, how deep can you go? How long can you hold your breath? And it's so performance orientated and numbers. And the first thing I say, get them out of your head. I'm not here to teach that. I certainly don't coach that,
It's more about yourself.
Yeah, it's more what you get. Even recently, we got a particular gentleman who was on a course, and he's on a few courses, and it was... He mentioned in testimonial, you didn't just teach me freediving, you taught me something else about life. And it wasn't me, and I'm not backslapping me. It was the whales in the water, and it was him going down there, and there was a male very close to us, somewhere in 30 metres below us, and it was just very vocal. And even for me, it was just resonating through it was pounding through your heart and lungs, echolocating, feeling. And for him, that was spiritual
Connection.
So he got beyond freedive, and he said, "Mate, you changed. That was enough to change me." So it wasn't numbers, it wasn't depth, it wasn't performance-based. We gave him a process where he got more comfortable to get to 20 metres, but to hear that as well got him beyond. Then him, I got to 20, I did this. and I'm going to compete more to go deeper and that sort of stuff with sort of ego and bluster. So I think if you apply yourself, I just use that anecdotally because it's what I do at the moment. I train that. But you can do that in, anything else you do. I think people who are vastly successful can separate, why they doing it. Like, someone popular on podcasts is Elon Musk with another aforementioned.
Yeah, he's definitely trending.
I'm sure it's not the billions. And I don't know him that well. I don't know him personally. And it could be, but I'm sure everything he put his mind to wasn't for the money.
Yeah.
So it wasn't for the number orientation of this. And I think then you harmonise.
Well, I think when you do that as well, the things that you do have to have purpose. And if it's all about the money, it takes away from
all the numbers,
from how genuine that is.
Yeah. I'm not going to paint a picture because I want to hang it in the Louvre.
It's very hard to connect with something if it's not real and it's not coming from a good place. And to go more on what you were talking about with what your guy learned, free diving, I feel that that was a great story, and thanks for sharing that, because it's just that spirituality, I think, comes from learning yourself sometimes. It comes from looking inward and learning more about yourself. So you've gone somewhere you never thought you could before, and you've learned, and it's an emotional experience, and you've pushed your boundaries. And I think I've always wrestled and thought about, spirituality in, is it something that's more than believing in something? I think it comes from believing in yourself and knowing yourself more, an internal knowledge, and having faith in yourself as well, not just leaving your faith in expecting some other force or power to always be there for you. That does for a lot of people, is knowing you've got that backing, that whatever is happening for a reason, and you've got that backing. But knowing that you can do it, and if you learn to back yourself, it's a really powerful tool as well.
I think we've got a lot more opportunity now. I mean, what we're faced with is that, we can be really busy, we can be crazily distracted. There's all the negative aspects. There's always been representative in a society that has built itself up, even in the waning days of Rome. I can even mention, there were senators in those days. One was called Cicero, who wrote papers, and I know this, and I've read a few of those in reflection to how it was at the end of that type of civilization, an epoch that went for almost 1,000 years, 800 and so forth. But it's very reflective to what he particularly wrote, what the reflections of youth were, because that's our future usually in civilization, what they're going to do, how they're acting. And the similes are very, very similar to what they are doing right now, and it is gross consumption and distraction. But also we've got with that, because we're so looked after in so many ways, as they were in that if you were a citizen of Rome, that, there was an aqueduct, there was running water, there was whatever heating, there was baths, security, there was Praetorian guards looking, for outside the walls. We've got to that place, and then finally we get to the point where we can be silent and uncomfortable with ourselves. So we can go either way with those resources. Yeah. If I say we can coke and hooker until we're, the worst. Yeah. But we might think, hey, I'm living the sharpest end of this civilization, and that's success. What I hear, whatever, with contemporary music, and I call Atlantan mumble rap, is that's all they talk about. There's one song that goes out that is a repetitive of Gucci, 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 Gucci. And sorry, Gucci, I'm sure you've made some good quality handbags. But now I don't think the message is very positive in terms of what to attain and what to distract. But also what I'm getting to a point with this particular gentleman, again, back to my previous anecdote, it's open to, you don't have to look spiritual to be spiritual these days. Yeah. Like, I don't have to have flowing caftans and be stuck in that, cave in the Himalayas. And I like calling them the Himalayas. It's just a lot better. Yeah. The Himalayas. I've been to the Himalayas, and I thought I was going to end up in a fucking cave in the Himalayas many times in my life. And I thought it was the go-to place. Oh my God, it was a time where I actually, had a conversation with the archdiocese of the Greek Orthodox Church, because I wanted to end up in Methura like a monk in the hills, right? If you ever seen those scenes of those monasteries up there ringing a fucking bell for the rest of my life. Yeah. I didn't. I'm here. But this particular gentleman, if I can use him as well, like, he I mean, his background, like he got something that was emotive and spiritual. And I am not a talented free diver. I think I'm a good coach. That's what's important to me, a mentor.
Yeah, totally.
So if I take over a little bit of ego, I like seeing the matriculation of the students, at whatever level, and that's why I'm in the game, because I learn too. And I learn from someone like this particular, if he's the archetype of coming from the south of where we are here in Exmouth. And, what I figured out his background, he told me, he worked in security, in licensed venues, and that's an archetype in itself, and the type of people you hang out with and whatever. But to see him, like I said, it's not, you don't have to wear the caftans, you don't have to look like this. He's totally not that archetype. Yet, being with him for those couple of days, I found him emanating, more glowing and more open to that progression than someone you might see in society up here who's living the right town beach life. And, I don't want to pigeonhole or whatever, but your masters can be, and the people you learn from, you got to open up to say that they can be vastly different as the Tibetan monks do. They choose a Dalai Lama from a newborn. Yeah. So they're usually aged monks who think they've learnt everything, and then they're going to bow down to a child. So it's not. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah,
what I'm trying to get at
it's
as
the
well?
fact that you can never. It's coming back to you can never fully claim anything or think you have it all.
Yeah.
Worked out. It's humbling,
but
right?
Also don't get confused by the archetypes of the type of person you're meant to learn that message from.
Yeah.
Successful investment banker, a doctor, an epidemiologist who thinks they know everything now.
Yeah.
Politicians especially, these people surely good and what have you, but I think we should in this modern way as well, I think now is, I don't want to use the word suspicion, but we really got to open up more so to inquiry.
I think it's okay, to question.
Because we never did. We did.
Yeah.
There's been revolutions in the past and what have you, but also now, because we've gotten, I've tried to explain, more of a society where good and bad, it's way more entitled and individualistic, but use that to your advantage. You got everything now, especially us, and I'm really part of that regardless of, race or socioeconomic background, especially in the first world. We're in the 1%, even smaller margin.
Yeah.
We got to remember that, with our entitlement, but also with our accountability as well. Not just amongst us. And I think comparison is very crucial, and it's all you can't always talk about, the World Vision kids and, distended stomachs in Africa, because that is a more complicated and different problem as well. But also we can, when in terms of what we're feeling with our clarity and our mental health, comparison does help quickly to put perspective into play to what is a huge problem that isn't in Oman at the moment, or especially Syria.
Yeah.
We can go to these third world countries. We've flown to them very cheaply in the last 20 years of the jet age and the different definition of what backpacking possibly is. And I can add a lot of, and I know I'm talking a lot, and I can add a lot to that as well, first-hand experience as well, the homogeneity behind that as well. But I mean, really not just go there for the cheap goods and the tattoos and the watered down alcohol, or, and the advantages of that, but also to see the happiness index that living amongst those communities we consider second and third world, I find way higher than anybody who's, I would use as, a metaphor here that people might recognise, like living in a big double garage house in Hillary,
Yeah.
with a property that's 1,600 square foot on the edges of the property, and does that evoke happiness over a Burmese family that I saw lived in a shack they built themselves near a river? And even if I go into other territories that could be possibly, controversial, is, how they have, and they, articulate that family unit and the way the paternal help and the mothering and that sort, from what I see that we say we've gotten to the upper echelons of society, yet we should be a little bit more self-reflective, and we should also be more accountable.
Yeah, I think when that, like you say, being more accountable, I think it comes back to, and you were sort of touching on it about questioning things, is that are the things we're being sold by the people that are selling, do they really have our best interests?
Well, we know that
in
now.
hand?
Let's fucking say
Yeah,
it
we
straight
totally
up.
do. But
As a Harvey, they don't have our fucking best interests.
on the other side of that, it's nice to push the accountability back. So we want to be catered for in every way and be made comfortable, because then if we know that we're paying for a service that's taking all of that, of our own accountability, or maybe making us safe, is that we can push back and go, okay, look, they're providing this service. I'm comfortable and good, and if anything goes wrong, it's kind of back on them, not on myself. So I think the idea of comfort, yeah, it's exactly the same as claiming that you know everything. It's comfort is you get to comfort and you think, oh, this is comfortable. I've got the life that I've dreamed of, that I've been sold. Now I'm here. Now what? There's nothing else, because you're top dog. You're the apex. We consider ourselves the apex of this planet, the alpha, and you're very, very, I guess, but there's potential there by being at the top of isolating yourself. Instead of being...
How do you feel about that?
Amongst that...
Personally, if I redirect that to you,
yeah, sure.
Family man, we're in this environment we call, the top, we're in the 1%.
Yeah.
Australia certainly is that, whether it evokes that message worldwide, with our current, lockdown messages and so forth. But we're like a little fortress of something, totally. An island fortress, as they always state. But also, whatever, top dog, this, that level of comfort and what have you. Like, even... You got to always, that's another word I was looking for. Should have written it down in my hand.
Yeah, with the others.
Reassess,
Yeah.
And again, like, we can get that level of comfort when we're not forced to reassess all the time.
Yeah.
Let's say something more immediate. I know it's very dramatic, but I mean, if you're bombarded in Aleppo in Syria, you're reassessing your life every day.
That's right.
A lot of people go to nature. I'm going to bring it back to there.
Yeah.
You go camping. What do you feel more alive, Inclement weather, this, that, pack up, move here. You're thinking about shit that people used to think about, like food, shelter daily.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of hardwired that makes us feel more alive.
I think
it gives us purpose too.
Well, I think that comes from taking yourself off the top of the pyramid and bringing yourself back down into the pack. You're more exposed in nature. You're assessing stuff every day. You're
reassessing.
Yeah, you're not up there thinking you're the king and everything's okay, and you're isolating yourself. And by bringing yourself back down into that group instead of being on top of the pyramid, you're more aware. You're a part of more of a community or a system, and you're involved. And I think it's a healthier mindset. You're a part of an ecosystem, so you're more likely to look after it.
So you're saying pretty much,
and look after the things that are around you.
Is that when we do get to that facets of civilization where everything's considered, if we get bored, I find the best way I describe everyone's excited for nothing.
Yeah,
always, and that's a sort of a negative energy. That's not that calm in the pond. It's everyone's. I even like to challenge things like what I see. If I'm an observer. My head's very busy most of the time.
Yeah.
I do, waffle on to people on the street and they provide whatever kind of entertainment, but it is very busy and it is observant and so forth. And, we live in a tourist town and, again, we're quite entitled to be here as well and buffeted from a lot of things that I've mentioned previously. But, yeah, busy. Like, what warrants, effort that equates reward? Why are we so reward orientated? And for me, even what we've built up here, I'd like to challenge you, what you think. And I see it sort of complicated in my mind is, I don't know, you successfully done whatever you do during the week. 40 hours is what our Industrial Revolution taught us. We can work a lot longer. And then we deserve of a celebration every Friday where we pickle ourselves stupid. Am I studying that a little bit more? I don't put a lot of mind to it, but what feedback I get was, and if we go into these sort of spiritual pseudoscience civilizations. A lot of people are attributing themselves to, understanding what the harvest moon is, and the cycles that we used to have as a civilization. So we got into agriculture. We did that where community, like your base, everyone's got a role, blacksmith, cobbler, whatever. And then you have a successful harvest, and then you're warranted reward.
Sure.
So they had their, solstice, pagan festivities or whatever. I think in the industrialisation, we shortened that to a 5 to 7 day rotation.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're lost in that.
Yeah,
and we're excited
totally.
about absolutely fucking
It's
nothing.
like a hamster wheel going around.
And this is, again, we were talking about what is more contemporary to talk about mental health. Is this part of the problem or the solution? Is it just distraction, or are we blowing off steam? Like, I know more Latin cultures and even Grecian culture with Zorba, it's dance it out, and all that is a positive.
Yeah.
Nurturing your inner child and all that. But is it making us more sick that we're on a hamster wheel on a 7 day rotation, and also we're making poor choices in what we ingest? And what I see, you haven't mentioned it, maybe as a facilitator, I have been for meditation and yoga and so forth. Are we applying that positively over a duration of time, as in doing the work? And I'm not saying, again, like you mentioned, sticking yourself in a 100-day Vipassana, which is not talking meditation thing, or in a cave. But I mean, we're resetting too short, as in we'll do things that feel good, but are really not so good for us. And then we're thinking we're going to introduce these new spiritualities on a Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I am calling out our culture around here.
Sure.
And I'm happy to call out maybe the bullshit. And we really got to be a little bit more analytical. So we're talking about this, like mental health issues and so forth. And my question to most people are, and I got this, ironically, from a Sudanese mechanic I have in Melbourne named George. Great. I go there and, mate, I get, my Ford fixed, and I get more things I learned from him than I have, say, people that taught me yoga in North India.
Yeah.
And he goes, today, there's no fence sitting around. You really got to consider this. Are you part of the problem, or are you part of the solution? It's the only choice you got in life now. And that's everything you do, what you ingest, what process you want to undertake for positivity or not. But for yourself, are you part of your problem, or are you really part of your solution? And stop subcontracting that out.
Yeah, that's right.
Take that personal responsibility for your damn self.
Yeah.
And don't go somewhere looking that you're going to make me feel better in this retreat. I'm going to do this. I'm going to manifest this. You know what? Accountability, we use it a lot. I use it a lot now. But it means something more. And I think you got to dig a little bit deeper in your own person to help you on that journey.
And I think everyone is equipped to make themselves happy, and living for Friday and getting through the week. I mean,
it's a stress response. I agree.
It totally is. And I don't take away from the fact that you work hard and you need to recognise and celebrate those achievements. But hating your job every day and living for Friday is no way to live either. I mean, if that's the way that your life is, then you really need to have a look at what you do and what you do to make yourself happy, because it's a short-term answer for a short-term, like a long-term solution, I guess.
You're correct. Exactly what you said. Short-term answer, but people apply that their lives.
That's right.
And the community of industry around that celebrates that you live this again in our first world application. It has bled into second, third world stratas. If you go to Mumbai and everyone wants to be living like Bollywood, you go to, you see all those memes of, in Lagos, Nigeria, everyone's flashing cash, gold, and they got a hyena as a pet because they want to be gangster rappers.
Yeah.
It has bled into society. It's homogenized now. It's not just an American message. It's gone across, and it's heavily based towards industry, giving the impression of what makes you happy. But we've already explored it. We've understood it doesn't.
That's right.
Yet we're still attached to it like a drug.
Because the people that aren't there are striving for it. They haven't learned that lesson. It's, I mean, I think about, your blue zones around the world, those areas where the highest population or per capita lives over 100 years old, centenarians, and the thing
One's in
where
Greece, Ikaria,
yep, so there's a few around the world,
and in Japan,
yep, and it's these people have lives that they're content with, which takes the stress away.
Yes.
So it evolves in less stress, living longer, to the point where people are still working into their 80s and 90s. I mean,
drinking hard liquor like grappa and smoking and I don't endorse any of this, but what I'm saying is like organic tobacco that they farmed and so forth. So we can go into, we can segue into other things in terms of the food industrial industry or whatever. But what you said was key is I can eat the Mediterranean diet that makes these people subsist all the way to 100 plus, or the wakame seaweed diet that is in, Okinawa and southern parts of but if I did that as a stockbroker in New York, my heart will still explode at 54.
Yeah.
It is environment too and acceptance as well. So again, we got these new industries, new age spiritualism. Yoga's not a new industry, but it's trending more so than ever. But again, people are applying to it when I need to calm myself, because the weekend I got to be, if it's the weekend, some people live it all week. Because it's bled over the weekend too.
That's right, yeah.
It could be a 24/7 thing. Some people endorse that. But anecdotally, and when they come to me, if I've ever been in a position, again, I'm always learning, but if I've had to be a mentor, I get frustrated a little bit because, if I ask them a little bit of a backlog of, why do you feel this way, whatever, and they just give me, just a reflection of their last 2 weeks, well, I'm like, well, you're part of that problem, aren't you?
That's got a bit to do
I'm not going to I can't do anything, if you don't understand that and then discipline yourself. And that, what you mentioned earlier in this discussion about the pond, that it can be stormy, it can be all this, but it takes time. And again, we're hardwired for instant results. If you're not willing to put that time and understand that you might have to mitigate some of the processes, then, again, we're going to always be stuck, in a loop of, accessing compounds and things that make us feel good immediately.
When it feels like everyone is just concerned with what's next.
Yeah.
What's next?
I'll ask you about your running. Can you run what you've done recently that you ran around the block for, something that I can't definitely do?
Yeah.
But you took your time. I think, whether you even went into completely exploring the type of footwear you wear, the books you read, it took time for you to matriculate where you got to that point of comfort you are now.
Yeah.
If I go back to what I do now, with freediving, I always say slow is fast.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we say as a runner. Slow is fast and fast is slow.
Yeah.
But you can't rush it. There's nothing you can buy that will add to that.
Nothing. Not for running. You can do it barefoot.
That's right.
You can do it with your tallywhacker hanging out.
But it's not.
You do it like a Roman.
It's not just one thing either. It's a variety of things.
Same thing with freediving.
That all ties in to that happening. So you can't just say, hey, look, if I'm going to buy these runners, I'm going to be able to run 100 miles.
Yeah.
It's how you run, how are you fueling yourself, how hard have you trained, not pushing yourself, resting when you need to. There's so many things involved where, just going back to, but it's enjoying the process as well. It's the process that you fall in love with. Yes, you might race once or twice a year, but you wouldn't do the training if you didn't love it either, right?
Do you think people sit and enjoy the process these days? I just,
well, like I said, people are just focused on what's next. Let's
say you're sitting the best restaurant in a town, an urban environment, and then you're going to go to the hottest night spot, and then you get there and you want to go to the next one, and then you want to know where the kick-on is. You want to know this. You
just relax and enjoy where we are.
There anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I see it with my kids. I get frustrated with my kids. Yeah. I mean, they get their presents when it's their birthday or Christmas, and they're so fixated on what to unwrap next that they're not sitting there appreciating what they've just got in front of them. And it's like, hang on a sec, just appreciate
what was your
what you've
favourite
been given.
Toy as a kid?
My favourite toy as a kid,
because we didn't have many, did we? We're 90s and 80s
man,
kids.
I was pretty spoiled as a kid, and I was definitely one of those.
But I knew that I could make a lot out of minimal, as well, and that's again a good reflection that we're given too much.
Yeah,
and we don't ever concentrate on one thing to expand on what knowledge or play we can get out of it.
Yeah.
Mine was a BA Baraka style.
The A-team, yeah.
From the A-team.
I had the A-team.
Mr. T.
Yeah.
12-inch.
Yep. The
He
big
had
with the
feather earrings.
Yep.
Fat gold.
All the gear.
And I used to walk around, and I reckon for years I created all adventures. I was immersed in BA Baraka's world. Other times I lit fires in bunkers where you got a little bit burnt and shit, things that you sort of can't do right now with helicopter parents. Yeah. Sometimes I lit fires and put a Mortine can in there and he exploded.
Yeah.
But the hours of, made up present fun that I got out of that one toy that my parents gifted me once in X amount of years, because most of the time it was just dirt and, I don't know, coat hangers
whatever
to
else.
play with. But that's what I'm saying. We're too overstimulated.
Yeah.
And we're never learning to utilise the one thing.
That's right. I mean, you've got options to be entertained with what's in your pocket in the touch of a button or the touch of a screen. If you're bored with that, you just go to the next thing. And people and we've talked about it before, where scrolling is just constant new distractions. And
I call it stuck.
Yeah.
To the detriment of my loving partner, Kyra. I always ask her, don't get stuck. She's very stubborn and Tory, and she's like, I'm not, I'm busy, it's work.
Yeah,
but I'm like,
I need to do this.
Yeah, but it's instant. She's scrolling and she's stuck. And then she's, I go, how'd that go last? She's like, I was stuck. I go, very easy to do, isn't it? And I noticed, even we went early and got a brew coffee, and you just saw people with their, you've got fantastic alchemized drinks in front of you, conversation to be had, and they're stuck.
Yeah.
And I saw this more recently. Now it's part of our diaspora. It's part of our, it's very normal.
Yeah.
But I used to go out, I lived in Thailand in the dive industry. We worked for a long time. And I think I was there 8 years ago, more 5 years. This 5-year block is just it's gotten to a point of hyperdrive. It's so articulated itself that it's so common. But I remember the days where I saw it was really uncommon, and there'd be a group of usually UK, quite attractive female backpacker girls. Not that I'm, sussing them out and creeping on them in restaurants, but they were the archetype for me.
Yeah.
And then the smartphone came up, and there's the sunset going off. It's glorious. It's on an island in the tropics. And what do you think they're doing?
Taking photos of it.
No. Scrolling, looking down. I mean, it's happening there. Yeah, they take one or two pics, but, there's FaceTime and all this, and they're involving people all around the world. But they're not just being there with that phenomenal...
Enjoying that for what it is, yeah. Enjoying
8 of them could be in a row, head down, post-producing that shot, doing everything, giving that impression of how great that particular moment in time was for all of them sharing. Yeah. However, either looking out of the glass onion looking in, for me as an observer, I don't know if they hated that time, but it wasn't as magical as I'm sure they put on that on that photo or whatever they posted in that Insta story. And I challenged them. I used to go, what are you doing? Put it down, look out.
Yeah.
And this was 8 years ago.
And it's something to be shared too, because if, let's just say in that moment that everyone didn't have phones, or they put their phones down, and everyone was watching it and appreciating it, you're also sharing something with all of those people.
Exactly.
So you're kind of connecting with the people around you, which makes it even more special, because you've all just recognised that something pretty special has happened. There's a moment in your life that is worth stopping and pausing for, and you've collectively done it with another group of people.
You know what I'm picking up is that even from me reflecting on that, if it's something pressing that we're talking about here, because it is an issue in terms of how people feel right now, especially with events now, and more unsure. Everyone's unsure, unstable, and mentally ill. Everyone uses that term quite freely now, which is okay. But I just challenge, don't use it if it's trending.
Yeah.
Sometimes life can be unstable and that. But my reflection is that how I see people now, and there's youth coming up here and still a tourist environment and how they integrate and so forth, it happens so fucking fast that what you just beautifully emoted and said that, whether there was a barbecue, you remember when I was young and it was just a Nokia 31.3 that when I made a call, I stupidly used to turn it off Because I thought I had to turn it on, then make a call, then
Yeah.
turn it off. When I needed to use it, I'd turn
Why
the
is no
fucking
one
thing
ever
on.
calling
I
me?
was like, why do I need it on all the time? I mean, that was in my geography. That's how I used to think.
Yeah.
But you're at the barbie, you're hanging out with your mates, you're having that moment. Now everyone's like, it's so hyper driven to share it to such a bigger community all the time.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder we're fucking not feeling that well, because we're never there. We're never there. We're never really engaging in our lives.
In that present moment. And it's yes, you're connected in ways that you're connected with your phone, you're connected to people you can't directly be with.
Let's talk about
but
that
you're
connection.
being disconnected.
organic?
You're being disconnected immediately from the people that are in your company.
Which is
and
wrong.
the situation and the
You're
environment
sharing
that you're
energy
in.
with these people. If it is
That's
that
right.
pseudo-spiritual, you're emanating. So it is a big sort of thing now with technology we can talk about in terms of how we feel with ourselves too. And there's a lot of other people who invoke the progression of this. Again, I mentioned him before, like Elon Musk, and he's going to do a Neuralink. If people are familiar with that, we're going to be plugging in more with these, attachments and things that we think are so vital to communicate with. But are we transcending with that communication, or are we just swapping innate?
Oh, it's like we're backing away.
I think
We're
I can
isolating
see that
ourselves even
we've
more.
become like really good custodians of what would be like a librarian, a classic archivist.
Yeah,
We're just fucking busy archiving everything. We're not living anything.
that's right.
So if I just see what people do at the pub on the weekend, they're archiving the fuck out of that.
Well, even the
But
reason
have they
behind
lived it?
the reason behind it, it's like I'm going to go out and have an amazing time, so I can take a photo of it.
I don't need to go out anymore, as I can just
Not
look at
because
people's
I want
stories
to.
and I think I'm there.
Yeah. Well, they've got with VR and all that
I
stuff
don't go
now.
out.
Yeah.
I need to. I've lived it.
It's too
And
cold
I've saved
outside
money
at
at
the
the
moment.
pub.
Yeah. But I think there's a big difference in living for the moment and living in the moment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Living for the moment, it's always what's up next. What am I
That's what I'm
missing
saying,
out on?
excited for
What's
nothing, I
everyone
call it.
doing that I'm not being a
Excited
part
for
of?
nothing. That's my
When-
term. I call
yeah.
it exciting for nothing.
You let go of that and you think, right now, I'm here having a pretty rad time with the people in my direct company, I suppose. It's
Let's put a
and
challenge
the
out.
focus on that.
Do you want to put a challenge out, Az?
Great, let's do it.
Inner Expeditions is officially putting a challenge out. Next time you go to the west side out here or you go for a camping trip, do not take your phone. Most of the time we're out of, which is a luxury out here because
It's nice.
actually
Yeah, I just did that
we
recently.
don't have this amazing coverage.
Yeah.
So you can do that. I see people who really, they come back and they say how refreshing it is.
Yeah.
That they didn't use.
But even
Like-
that's harder to do now because you can get signal in certain places. Like camping was just, if you ever went camping, you couldn't get phone range.
I just want to put it
now,
out there. Okay, let's go. The next trip you go to Charles Knife, you keep that, you turn it off, you put it in your car, you do whatever trail you do, not one photo,
Yep, and enjoy it.
just fucking enjoy it.
Get your feet on the ground.
No GoPros in the water.
Nah.
You swim with that turtle. I don't want to fucking see it. I don't. Talk about it, whatever,
Engage with that turtle.
amongst the brew, whatever, with friends.
Yeah.
Let's challenge people to go back there and just, and the thing is, again, I go back to what I mentioned previously. It's not like we have a no phone policy with our courses, but you just fucking can't take a phone down there. And we're not recording. Some people say, look, we're training. As a trainer, whether I did scuba or whatever, and it was always like, it's got this new underwater, hell no. I'm teaching you processes and safety processes. I want you to be present.
Listening to me. Yeah, that's right.
Listen to
That's
me.
how you're going to learn.
Yeah. And I think the reflection now, because it's gone at a hyperdrive level where we're so attached to feedback and giving feedback all the time, people come out and their disclaimer and their testimonial after is like, oh my God, I was so there with that whale. But I didn't record it.
Yeah.
I didn't. But
You wouldn't have
their
got that.
vocal disclaimer is, I remember what it's to be. Fuck, let me just end it there. I remember what it is just to be.
Just to be. That's right. That's beautiful.
And how difficult is it to find that? And I will segue, if you do want to take anything out of maybe this discussion is, if you're struggling and you just work on that.
Get back to that.
Just be.
Yeah.
Henceforth why I've got one
That's right.
tattooed on my left
On the webbing of your
left
hand. Yeah. I'll make sure I get that photo into the.
That was a
to the-
reminder
to the
to me
release.
at a certain time in my life that was quite challenging, and that mind fucked me out. Like if I was looping, I'll tell you, I'd look at this tattooed bee and it'll remind me, no future, no past.
Yeah.
Just
right here. It's all we've got.
As shit as you're feeling.
Yeah, it is. It's all we've got. And you hear that all the time.
Exactly.
And, without taking away, everyone's got a phone, everyone's got a laptop.
Excited for nothing.
They are, but they're amazing tools. They're great applications, but at the end of the day, that's all they are.
I love my Audible. I love my audio books.
Use them. Enjoy them.
Yeah, again, it sounds like I use it. Be smart these days. Well, my advice, and I'm sure yours will be discerning. Use it. I'm
know
not
when to put it away.
Anti-technologist. Again, said I was going to be ringing bells like a Benedictine monk in, the peaky mountains of Southern Europe or in the Himalayas. But no, I'll turn it around. I don't. I'm still a technologist. Use it.
We all are.
Be fucking wise, with it.
But you can't, you want to go, they talk about going up and learning, ringing the bells, being in the mountains. Not everyone can do that. I think that's a cop-out too.
No,
yeah, but not everyone can do that.
I guess, now how I feel, it's a cop-out too.
I think you've got to learn to...
You've got to be here.
Not everyone can do it. You've got to be able to learn to deal with it where you are in your situation.
Perfectly put. And that's
because everyone's got to get through life. Everyone is going through something. We can't all just take away and expect that some magical journey is going to fix us on the other side of the world.
Feel good with, throw money at it.
Yeah. We can get ourselves...
Throw money at a process or something that people are teaching you, or a method that is very expensive these days to do over 3 to 5 days somewhere with someone who's giving you a testimonial that they can help you do that.
Waiting for someone else to fix you. Putting that faith in someone else to give you what you need. It's like...
And again, I'm not saying step away from, you can learn something, it's great, but also have that accountability, the personal accountability that you need to evoke. But again, I feel like, me going to, if I physically train my body, it's a lot easier having someone yelling at you. I mean, funny enough, in my backstory, I've spent many years in the military as well here in Australia.
Yeah.
And I used to fucking love it when someone used to tell me to run.
Yeah.
Because the responsibility and the onus is off me, and I can respond easier to that. But to motivate yourself, a lot more difficult, isn't it?
That's right, absolutely. And
so we do throw money. Someone's going to make me do the yoga for 3-5 days. Someone's going to keep me quiet for that 10-day Vipassana if you choose. But to continue that kind of teaching
takes discipline.
Discipline and
that
accountability.
Only comes from inside, Yeah. It's I think you can fix your situation, and it all starts with you. And everyone talks about being the best version of themselves, and you can only do that if you're comfortable with yourself. You've got to own what you are and what you do. Take accountability of that, and before you can project that in a positive way onto other people, you've got to be 100% comfortable and happy with who you are.
I call it FOSS.
Yeah.
And I can direct that out with mirth to a lot of processors, political parties, industrialists, full of shit. But if I internalize that, and even for me, and I'm not a saintly, I'm not anyone to call yourself out when you're full of shit is a remarkable process.
Absolutely. I think it's the start of
and to be humble enough to be able to do that.
That's kind of the start of it, because if you're lying to yourself, you can't heal yourself. You've got to be honest with yourself, and it scares people because there's things in there that they've pushed down that they don't want to deal with, whether it's a past experience and how they feel about themselves. Man, clear that lake, bring it all up to the surface, and deal with it. And be honest with yourself. If you're lying to yourself, then you're never going to be able to fully deal with whatever's happening in there. You've got to dig it up.
Would you agree with me that there's people saying loftier positions in society who believe their own bullshit and emote and teach processes that shouldn't be teaching processes, and
100%.
And people, it's monetized, and
because what do they? Their affirmation is they're making lots of money by selling this. So their fortune is their affirmation.
And they're successful and happy.
Because that's how they gauge it.
Have you seen that movie Magnolia with Tom Cruise?
No, I don't think so.
Do.
Okay.
And at home, please. One of Tom. You know what? As cheesy as his grin is, as non-aging as his face is,
Yeah.
as Scientological batshit crazy as he could be, sorry to say that,
Yep.
I love his personal passion as an actor,
Yeah.
and explore more beyond that, just that Tom Cruise, Top Gun sort of. He can sometimes be, self-effacing. Magnolia's a good movie where, I think he could have possibly, he's never won an Oscar, this guy. But he was close with this one. And he was like a self-effacing, representation of what is very popular at the moment, coaching and, what we classically think is, Anthony Robbins, Big Ands and all that life affirming more came out of Southern California message that, you can manifest everything. But also, the FOS part of it too. The back
Absolutely.
end.
Yeah, definitely.
And, do you put that lens on yourself? And do they teach you that? Or is it just best and always?
Yeah.
So that's also, another way to steer yourself to be self-effacing and healthily critical.
Create, and I've said it before, is create your own, the person that you are, if you're looking at people to compare yourself to or people to live up to, the only person you should be living in a version of is yourself. You shouldn't live in anyone else's version. Be your own version. I've said it before. Take the things you like from other people and what other people say, but put it towards your own path. The best version you should be is your own version.
Yeah.
And if you're honest with yourself and you are surrounding yourself with good people and creating a community,
I think that's really well put.
I think it's really
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
I'm facetious enough to think that I think about a lot of things, but I just thought, I never, even for myself, maybe people will come across, really think I'm quite an individual, whether that's doctored or manufactured. I don't think so in the end. What you just said, you get the good parts of a lot of different teachings. Why I would parallel it to the modern age with technology is because people are, I call it parroting, mimicking everyone else, and they never get to that comfortable version of themselves. They're trying to be everyone else.
Keeping up. Or trying to live someone else's life or live the same as someone else's life.
Yeah. More so now, it's like a carbon copy. But I've never heard it put it that way. That be the best version of that. What I can tie that into, and more recently, and I do say a lot to people that I come across in the streets when I want to talk. If you do that, and it might not suit the social image message or the masses or the popularity or whatever, you come across some real, other people might say they're weirdos and oddballs and so forth, but I celebrate that because their integrity to who they are is absolute.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing, and I wasn't the person who ever subscribed myself to, that jock cool, group in high school or whatever. I sort of spread myself, whether I did it on purpose or whatever, very geeky and that, but I could engender myself in all little groups and so forth.
Yeah.
But what I want to go back and say that the more you get aligned to that comfort of who you are, and the best way to express it is that you almost get to zero fucks.
Yeah,
and
well,
that's fucks lesson.
Well, that's what they reckon narcissists are some of the most happiest people in the world.
And then you have none left.
Yeah.
And not in that narcissistic, I don't give a fuck about anything or anyone, that KDB, and I'm going to call her out, that world teaches you that snap, I'm, you got to get beyond that. That is destructive mindset. That is a sellable thing through industry and product. But if you get to that where you can, I don't know, if you still want to wear naughties onesies and think you look cool in a crocodile onesie, whether it's trending or not, and your fucks are zero and you're really comfortable with yourself, that's great.
If that's what makes you happy and you're not hurting anyone.
Even though I cannot stand onesies as a disclaimer, but if you own that shit and you emanate that comfort in your skin and yourself, then great.
You're genuine.
But if you're trending and you're doing it for a ride, then I will call you the fuck out.
Well, you're a follower, really.
Yeah.
But when you are comfortable with yourself and you're happy with yourself,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've spoken about it in other episodes, like Ian Morgan sort of mentioned it. If you're not hurting people and you're not doing things,
Yeah, I'm with that.
You're not a bad person.
Yeah, 100%.
But if you know who you are and you own who you are and you're happy,
If you like to get tied up on a meat hook, if you're not hurting anyone, that's cool too.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm serious. Self-expression is,
Yeah.
you know, I think I'm more
Sometimes
for that.
it can be the other way.
As
But
well.
the more comfortable you are in your own skin, the less you're worried about what other people think about you. Do you know what I mean?
It circles back to whether we, on purpose or not, spoke about more of those issues about mental instability and that, because it is a very strong narrative today.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And it's easy to compare with other people.
Yeah, I think, you know, if there's ever advice to offer, that is, number one, like, you know,
Just
self-critical, self-analytical, not in a negative space, as in, am I that person that I am for my problem or against my problem?
Yeah.
Is what I'm using externally and what I associate as important, as in whether it's a social media message or an image or an idea of myself outside of myself, is that for me or is that against me? Yeah. What I'm pursuing, life goals, you know, what narratives I'm listening, influences, governmental, you know, is it scaring the bejesus out of me, whatever, it's for my mentality, or is, you know, and again, am I just, you know, am I full of shit or am I a puppet? Or am I taking these teachings and I'm putting them on board and customizing to how I feel that will ultimately make me the better version of me that doesn't harm others?
Yeah.
Does that put succinctly?
Yeah. And
go.
allowing yourself time to take work
I didn't even
and
get
do
that
work
out
on
of the
yourself.
burning bush.
Yeah. That's great.
The tenets of life. Doo.
Well, I mean, that's probably a pretty good sort of area to start wrapping it up. I think we've done pretty well, and it's
what? From the beginning, I thought,
around
mate,
good.
You know,
I think
I do need to go to the loo.
I've
That
really
says something.
Same, yeah.
I've got a movement.
The mineral water and the
However,
the bitters is
I thought I wouldn't be able to talk but I will thank you as a friend, and I will also mention that I'm excited by friends moving in these directions. Personally, this is very good. How I thought about it, was I resistant? But now, no. Podcasting, interesting.
it's good. Thank
How
you.
good.
Thanks for thanks for coming on, and thanks for your kind words. It's you know, I don't know a lot. I learn a lot from my guests like yourself, which I'm super grateful to have and to be around. But
it's
willing to learn
osmosis.
more.
I learned from you too.
Yeah.
I did in this session.
Great, thank you.
No, really.
It was good. It was a positive, a really great conversation, and it's just nice to. I'm so thankful that I've found this conduit or this device and this way of creating good conversations and learning. And I learn stuff every episode and every conversation, and super grateful for my guests. And you know, I'm just happy to be on this path, and grateful to be.
I got to say, I think you found your
to
niche,
do it.
and that's good. That's a rewarding thing in life too. Everyone's,
you,
you know, you can be successful in so many things, but to really be successful is something that you superfluously fit into. You know, I teach freediving now. I'll say my partner is the guru. I got to call her out that she has slotted herself. Am I yet to? Maybe I'm like, I wouldn't say it's a high testimony if I call myself Renaissance, but I try a little bit of this, that, and whatever, and I'll find that niche too. But maybe this is what I knuck it out with someone of your ilk who creates the platform and so forth. You're doing a good service.
Well, I hope to get you back on and have repeat shows. I know I definitely want to do with Kyra, and I've got plans for other.
I might become a silent monk, just ringing bells as. Oh wait,
I don't know how that would go for an episode, but it might be all right. You never know unless you try it, I guess. But it's been good, man. Thanks a lot. This episode was everything I knew it had the potential to be, and there was a reason why I got you on, and I think you've delivered that for what I wanted. So thank you so much for your time, and for everyone for allowing us to have this space and giving us the time to do it. It's it's really great. And yeah, like I said, I'm just so happy that we had the chance to sit down and record something.
My pleasure, Az.
Thanks.
Anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't wait till we do again. It's definitely on the cards, and we'll go down some different avenues.
What I'm not looking forward to is when I do hear my re-recorded message, my voice, and I'll be squirming and stuff. And I know, like, it's not my first rodeo where I've had this presented through media, and my God, it's uncomfortable.
I think you were great, and it wouldn't be the experience without it. I mean, I used to always, not really like the sound of my voice, but the feedback's been great, and people tune in to hear that, and it wouldn't be the show without you doing what you're doing. So it keeps you going, and you learn to push that aside to march.
As a disclaimer, I really like your voice. I think your voice is very suited in the role that you're playing. So I'll just say that.
Yeah,
well done, Az. I like it.
Thanks. The good feedback's what keeps you going. So tune in next time. Can't wait to speak again and to see what else we can delve into in the future. Thanks, man.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Okay, what did you guys think of that one? I enjoyed it immensely. During and then going back over editing, I got so much out of that episode. Really enjoyed it. Had some good laughs, as I always do when I catch up with that guy. He's just an epic dude. So if you want to check him out, he's on the Instagram. He's under at Neurophos, Nerophos. Also check out his great work he does in the dive school with Kyra at Salty Hearts Club on Facebook and Instagram. Also, don't forget the call to action from that episode. Get out there, turn those devices off, and get some real life experiences to enrich yourselves. But other than that, epic episode. Please listen to it again. I know I definitely will. And enjoy. I'm going to leave you guys to it. But on that other side of things, can't wait to speak to you guys again soon, though. Thanks very much. I'll speak to you next time. Bye.